Hello, tea family. How are you today? I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I hope it has been nice and cool where you are and not super hot like it is where I am currently. As you can tell from the background, we are in the process of traveling, which is why this week we're going to do a big question and answer. Normally, I do that on the third Sunday, but since we're traveling, this was much easier to prepare for. I do want to say hello, welcome. Uh, Please say hello in the chat or comments, depending on where you're watching. And as I go through, feel free to answer any questions or ask any questions that are in the chat or comments. I will tell you, I am by myself right now. We ran into a little snag coming to the campground. And so my handy dandy assistant and my son are actually out getting that problem solved right now while I'm here by myself. So I do need a little extra grace. I'm going to be having to look down and up and everywhere. And I might miss when everybody joins. I know he's really good about saying hi when he sees you join on Facebook or on YouTube or on Instagram. So I'm just going to say right now, I'll do my best, but I don't get that same notification because I'm on a completely different screen. But welcome. I am super excited you're here today, and I'm going to actually go ahead and get started. I look forward to seeing what everybody is drinking today. If you're wondering what's in my cup, well, first of all, I've got my one of my favorite cups here. And I am drinking Serene Sunrise. So that is a black tea with a little bit of cinnamon. The cinnamon does not overpower the tea. My cinnamon lovers like Vicky and Kim and Stephanie would really want even more in there, but there's just enough to balance out the boldness without becoming a cinnamon tea. It is still a black tea with a little bit of cinnamon to smooth out the flavors. And that is what I'm drinking in my cup today. I am not brewing, and the reason why I'm not brewing tea like I normally do is we didn't get here because our little kerfuffle, we didn't get here until just a few minutes before we went live, and I did not want to start late, so we are going to go and I'm not brewing tea. I'm just going to drink my Serene Sunrise for today. So Diane, you're drinking the iced Emerald Garden with fresh black raspberries. That sounds absolutely delicious. Perfect for a nice summer day. I love that. One of the things I was originally going to do was I was going to actually brew Emerald Garden today because I haven't had it in a while, and I do love that iced. But like I said, life just sometimes throws you these curveballs. So we always have a backup plan now, and we're going to go ahead and go with that. And I'm just going to keep sipping on my Serene Sunrise, which at this point is cool. It's not ice, but it is cool. It's not a hot tea anymore. So the first question that I got sent, Stephanie, you're drinking water tonight? See? Okay, so this is my tea. Stephanie, water right here. It started up here. I've got like this much left. Good for you drinking water in this heat. All right, I'm going to get started with the first question, which was sent in, and that is, can you cold brew any loose leaf tea, as in any flavor? And I was going to say technically yes, but the question really should be, should you cold brew any tea? And that's where it's going to be up to you. So delicate green teas like Emerald Garden or Ancient Green Dragon or even Lemon Zinger, and floral herbals like Evening Mint or Sunlit Orchard, those kind of things, they're absolutely amazing cold brewed. They're going to come out smooth and mellow. But what we find is that when you cold brew a black tea, can you do it? Yes. But cold brewing will sometimes mute those bolder breakfast notes, those bolder black tea flavors just a little bit. So it'll be a little more muted. Now, if you like it that way, that is great. But that's why oftentimes you'll hear me say, I brewed it hot and then I put it in the fridge to cool down, or then I let it cool down and iced it. Uh, that's why, because I want to get, especially with those black teas, I really want to get that full flavor. And so if I brew it hot and then let it cool and put it in the fridge and turn it, cold, then I'm going to still get all those flavors. But if I cold brew, it's not going to be hot enough, because remember that water and temperature all have an impact on the flavor of the tea. The cold brew of the black tea will have a much more muted, softer flavor. So a rule of thumb, if your tea is kind of a black tea or something that is sharp, has a lot of like sharp or very spicy notes to it, even like a jade chai, which is a green chai, or the ruby chai. You're gonna miss some of those notes. So brew it hot, let it cool, then put it in the fridge. If it's subtle, cold brewing is gonna highlight that sweetness that's involved in there. The other thing is, cold brew is typically really great on any kind of low acid, low caffeine sipping tea. So like your Emerald Garden, your Ancient Green Dragon, they're not an acidic tea. They don't have, like Lemon Zinger has lemon in it. And lemons and that is acidic. So, but those teas are really gonna be, you're gonna bring out that sweetness even more with the cold brew. So, all right, question number 2. Is it true that loose leaf tea can absorb smells? Yes. Loose leaf tea is almost like that person that remembers everything. It'll soak up whatever smells or fragrance oils are around it, perfume, spices, garlic bread, if you put, and this is why we want to store tea in an airtight container, away from heat, light, and moisture. We're trying to protect the tea itself from the other spices and flavors, and we're trying to protect it. Moisture, it's not its friend. Light is not its friend. Heat is not its friend. They will help dull that tea flavor. So this is one of those things when people find a tea that got kind of pushed to the back of their pantry, and they're like, it's been there like 2 or 3 years. Is it still good? I'm going to open it up and smell it. If it smells like your spice cabinet, or if it doesn't smell like tea, or then I'm going to say maybe don't drink that. But if it just smells like it's going to mute, because remember, the flavor will fade eventually. It'll just kind of soften and soften and soften, so there's less and less flavor. It's not going to taste the same, but it might be okay depending on how well it was. But you're going to have to judge it. That's why we really recommend kind of those double-lidded, real tight seals. A lot of times I will put mine in the glass jars when we mix them. If you've ever watched the reels or the videos, and I literally have a glass mason jar and I roll it, and then I put it in a cabinet where there's cabinet doors, away from the heat, away from the light, away from humidity. I have a special place where we keep them, and we do it that way because that way the glass protects it from everything else. We get a good seal on it. But then it's also away from the heat and the light and the moisture. So, all right. Remember, if you have questions, just put them in the chat. I keep looking over. That's why you see my eyes go down. All right. Number 3 was a really interesting question. And what it asked was, can you sweeten loose leaf tea naturally without honey or sugar? And there are some ways to do that. Diane actually had a perfect idea to sweeten her iced Emerald Garden. She put some fresh blackberries in there. That sweetness from the berries, when you put it in there, will sweeten the tea naturally with a little bit of fruit. You can also put some dried apple, maybe some pear slices, those kind of things. So you're taking the natural sugars found in fresh fruit or a dried fruit, and you're adding it in, and that will mix in with the tea when you brew it, and it will get sweeter. Another thing I would say is an actual pinch of a leaf of stevia, the actual plant. I'm not talking about the powder that you get in the little packets. I'm talking the actual plant. You can actually take and just when you get, if you have a stevia plant, take one of the leaves, break off a little bit, and you could put that in there. That will add a natural sweetness from the plant itself. I always suggest staying as natural as possible. Just because if you're trying to sweeten it without honey or sugar, you're obviously trying to get a little bit of sweetness, but you're not trying to add any kind of, sugar substitutes or anything like that. So I would go with the stevia plant fruit. Something else that will sweeten your tea naturally is a little bit of vanilla bean, a couple of tiny pieces of vanilla bean, especially if you get some of the caviar in the middle. That is one of the flavors that we will sometimes, like Sunlit Orchard, right? I have that ginger in there. I have apple, which is kind of adding a little bit of sweetness, but I have blue cornflowers. They add different delicate notes and some complexity, but I put the vanilla bean in there to sweeten and kind of balance that ginger and the heat of that ginger along with the apple. So vanilla bean pieces that are, especially the caviar, that is a great way to kind of sweeten it. It'll also smooth out the tea's flavors a lot of the time. It gets a silky, velvety mouthfeel flavor to it. To me, it's like a velvet flavor, but I don't know what velvet really tastes like because I don't eat it, but you get what I'm talking about. Another thing is carob or even licorice root. Use them sparingly. They can become very powerful very, very quickly. But you could add some of that in there. A lot of teas will have a little bit of licorice root for the same reason that I add vanilla in a couple of our flavors. But then you could also have a tea that has fruit in it, like Sunlit Orchard, or like when it's in season Harmony. The freeze-dried strawberries, since they don't have any citrus, they're just literally fresh. They come from the farm within 48 hours. We've put them in the freeze dryer, and that's it. But the tea and the orange zest, that's sweet. That tea comes out a little bit sweeter because of the fruit in it. So that would be another way to drink or sweeten your tea, is just pick a different tea flavor, one that has a sweetness to it already. But those are some natural options. I always want to kind of give people those kind of options. I did get this one sent in. I know I thought I talked about this. So Diane says, all your freeze-dried fruit teas don't need any extra sweetener added to them. I agree. And I think we try and balance for the tea with a little bit of sweetness, but not like you're drinking sugared tea. I always tell people, like, when I'm doing a Sunlit Orchard tea, don't anticipate that you're drinking the apple, or Starlight Pear. You're not drinking pear juice. So keep that in mind. Summer Kiss, you're not drinking peach juice. You're drinking a tea that has peaches in it, so you're going to get some of the flavor, and it is different. But that is true. The freeze-dried fruits, you really don't need a sweetness in them. So this question was, why does my tea taste weak? And this is actually a fairly common question. I usually find it's one of three things. Your tea tastes weak because, one, you're not using enough tea leaves. Two, you're using too much water. And three, you haven't steeped it long enough. So let's take those one at a time. Not using enough tea leaves. Okay, my nerdy geeks, 2.5 grams, or one rounded teaspoon for the most part, per 6 to 8 ounces of water. So a teacup usually only has 6 to 8 ounces. And that's what it is. If I am making this is a 20-ounce cup. Now, I don't fill it to the top. I typically do it in 18 ounces because I can go, okay, I need 2 things of tea. If I want to make it a little weaker, I would use 2 level or 2 rounded. Make sure you're using the right amount of tea. Now, if you have like ruby chai where it's a really heavy tea, you'll need less than that. You need 2.5 grams, but that's less than a teaspoon. If you're having something different with chamomile in it, for instance, where there's a lot of volume for not a lot of weight, you need a rounded tablespoon. The best way to do it is the 2.5 grams, but those are different ways and different amounts. That's why once you figure out your mug size or your cup size, figure out how much tea goes for how much flavor you like. Now, the other thing I talked about is that's for 6 to 8 ounces of water. If I used the perfect teaspoon, right, that rounded teaspoon, and I used 2.5 grams, but then I made 2 to 3 times as much water as I would normally put in a teacup, it's going to taste really weak. So make sure you get that tea to water ratio. The other thing is there are those out there, I have seen the videos myself where people have certain teas and they're like, oh, you need to brew it only 1 minute for a black tea. And I'm always like, nope, you need to brew 3 minutes. Now, some people will say, well, we want you to brew 5 minutes. And they might have a reason. It might have to do with freeze-dried fruit. For instance, green teas that have fruit in them, like a Harmony or our Summer Kiss, the peach tea, right? It's a green tea. Normally, a green tea you would brew between 175 and 180 degrees, but for 1 minute for the first brew. But I always tell you, and on the instructions, it says, if it has freeze-dried fruit in it, like Summer Kiss does, like Harmony does, like Sunlit Orchard does, you're going to want to do it for 2 minutes for that first brew and then add a minute to it. So you brew it a little longer so it can rehydrate the fruit that's in it. So sometimes you're not steeping it long enough. Those are the top 3 reasons why somebody's tea is weak. I will give you a bonus 4th reason, and that is because they sat that tea in their pantry and they forgot about it for 2 or 3 years, and then they're drinking it because remember, tea weakens over time, and they got everything else right, but that tea is old and has just started to fade. So, all right. Usually those are the best ways. The only other thing that I could throw in there maybe as a potential 5th is making sure your water temperature is right. All right, we are going to continue on. Remember, if you have a question, put it in the chat or the comments. I am trying to look at it while our handy dandy assistant and his sidekick, as Diane says, are on their way back from fixing our little issue on the road. Life is always a challenge. What can I say? Okay. Can you mix herbal and caffeinated teas? Yes. So remember, the difference between a tea and technically an herbal tisane is that teas have the Camellia sinensis plant in them and herbal tisanes don't. Now we call them herbal teas, but technically they're a tisane. You can mix them. It is okay to mix blends. And I know some of you have done that and you've shared that on the chats and everything like that. If you wanted to take a black tea like Sunlit Orchard and you were like, yeah, but I want to add, like, I don't want a chai, but I want to add like a little apple and cinnamon to it. You could mix an appealing with a Sunlit Orchard, or you could mix Sunlit Orchard and Serene Sunrise and get kind of a apple ginger kind of vanilla taste to it. Stephanie says she does it. Hang on, let me put that up there so I can see it better. Stephanie does this. She will mix some of the herbal teas with a black tea. It gives you that little bit of caffeine, but it's just a matter of putting together the flavors you like. These are your teas. Experiment. You know, it's okay to add, you know, Diane added the fresh blackberries to the Emerald Garden today. That's perfectly fine. You can add, I've added teas together. So there's my handy dandy assistant. He's on Facebook. One of the things that he's done before is he's taken lemon zinger and then he tested a rosemary tea that we were working on and he blended those together and really enjoyed it. It's about experimenting. It's about finding the flavors you like. It is okay, but how do you brew it? Well, if you're adding it to a green tea, You can just brew it, that green tea, for that extra minute because you're adding something that needs a higher temperature. What I would say though is if you are taking a green tea and a black tea and you're mixing them together, you're going to want to bring your temperature about halfway in between. So I would say about 190. So green tea is usually 175 to 180. Black tea, some people say 200, but usually boiling, right? You're going to want to bring it kind of partway in through. You need to have it hot enough to bring out all the flavors of your black tea, but you need it to be low enough in temperature so that it doesn't scorch and burn your green tea. So that is one of the benefits of herbal teas and black tea blends. They both can be boiled, so you don't have that problem. But when you're adding in a white tea or a green tea, they're more delicate, so you need to adjust your temperatures a little bit and be mindful of that. And you may have to experiment. Try that tea at 190, and then maybe try that tea at 180 and see how the flavors are a little bit different. That they might be pretty close. Perfect. But figure out where you are. It is okay to be a bad scientist. My handy dandy assistant is saying, be a mad scientist. It's okay to mix them up and to do that. Okay, while I was on here answering that question, does anybody else have a question for me? Okay, then I'm going to continue on this one for a second. If you ever wondered if you should put some of the teas together or certain ingredients, add them to your tea or whatnot, and you're really not sure, first of all, I say just take enough for 1 cup and try it. Make enough for 1 cup. That way you don't waste all the tea if you don't like it. But be willing to experiment with your tea a little bit. The other thing is if you're really nervous and you're like, what? I'm just really not sure. It's okay to reach out to me by messenger or by email or whatnot. Just reach out to me and I can let you know, will those flavors go well? Would they not? The same thing happens. I have a lot of people that will reach out. Hey, I'm going to be having this tea. I'm going to have a friend come over and I was thinking of having this tea. Any suggestions on a scone? Any suggestion on this flavor or savory ideas or foods that would bring out the tea? Those are things that we could definitely chat about. I know Rich just talked about elderberry. I want to caution you, elderberries are not something you just add into your tea. You can add the elderberry syrup, but the thing is when you add elderberries to anything, you actually have to boil it for, I want to say it's like 15 to 20 minutes because they can cause a lot of stomach issues. They're really not healthy for you until they have been boiled down from their raw form. So that is one of the reasons why we don't have an elderberry tea. We were going to make one, we had all planned, but every time I went to research it, elderberries really have to boil for a long period of time. And I didn't want to take the chance on someone not boiling it long enough and having a stomach issue or it causing any kind of issues. And so we've just made the decision that there are herbs out there. So be mindful if you're just adding raw herbs in, to be mindful of that because I want you to be safe and healthy. So research if you're adding just a regular herb to it or an ingredient to it. But if you are adding 2 teas together, you should not have that problem because everybody would have made sure you were okay to do stuff like that. Any other questions while I'm out there? I did want to kind of bring that up a little bit. Thank you for bringing up about the elderberry. I get, occasionally people like, there's a little too much cinnamon in this, in this. So I just go with I had one person that there was too much cinnamon in the Serene Sunrise for them. And they said, I just added my own cinnamon to it. And then it's funny because then I have 3 or 4 people that are like, there's not enough cinnamon in it. And then most people are in the same place I am where it's just right. It's just enough to smooth it out. But it's kind of funny. So depending on your palate, you can always do those kind of things as well. All right. Diane says that, here we go. Evening mint and lemon zinger together are a good mix to soothe the disgruntled tummy. Absolutely. And those are really great flavors. They're lemon zinger is a green tea, the evening mint with the chamomile and the lavender and the peppermint. Uh, lemon zinger is going to be the green tea. It's going to have lemon. I know there's another ingredient that's escaping me right now. But these are things that is really easy. Those two do go really, really well together. They blend and it's a nice flavor as well. So I do thank you for sharing that. And they're both really good. The ginger is good. The other one I have seen people do is for tummies is the Sunlit Orchard with Emerald Garden. That is one that a couple of people have told me that they put together that they really, really enjoy. So, all right. Well, this was really fun. I really loved everybody sharing and your comments and what you've done. I love hearing from you. I wish there was a way to make this a little bit more like that and a little less like Lisa talking all the time. But just keep in mind about the cold brewing and everything else. We will be here next Sunday. I do not remember because my notes are packed away. But I don't remember what we're talking about next week. But I will see you all next Sunday at 6 p.m. Central. I want you to have a wonderful week. If you're in the hot area like we are, stay cool and have one. A nice relaxing cup of tea to unwind at the end of the day. All right, we'll see you later, everybody.